Alright, Chapter 2, starting MS-DOS. Now you have the inch for the time of the thing for the MS-DOS, over the time to show for the system, and then something to do something whenever you show for the computer, whether the for the word processor, the counting program, MS off of itself, they begin loading MS-DOS with the computer memory. Its workplay for loading the MS-DOS program, then some of the running it is sometimes called for the booting system of the booting disk. This is term borrow for the phasing of the pole. Pulling yourself up by the bootstraps to cover the MS-DOS essentially pulls itself with its own bootstraps, loading itself with the disk with the memory over the where the waits for the command for you. Example from you with the assume of the computer with a hard disk that your system set up with the MS-DOS is familiar with the computer control switch with the install with a more recent version of MS-DOS with a hard disk. Refer to the appendix A. If the computer does not have hard disk, use your MS-DOS from the floppy disk. Have your usable hard disk ready. Starting with the system, when you be using MS-DOS with the hard disk, the MS-DOS of the program must be copied into the computer's memory via the hard disk, usually known with the MS-DOS or as drive C. All you need to do before starting with the system is use the latch over the drive A. The floppy disk isn't closed, otherwise the system try to load the MS-DOS program into the computer's memory with the floppy disk and drive A. If you're not using the hard disk, the MS-DOS program must be copied into the computer's memory with the floppy disk into the drive A. With the open the latch, usually either the left hand of the upper floppy disk drive, put in floppy disk, you would start MS-DOS call the system and its disk in this book with the label up and away from the machine. If you're using a 5 1/4 inch disk to close the latch, turn off the system. The computer seems to do nothing but several seconds. This is normal. Each time you turn on the power switch, the computer checks with its memory and all attached devices to be sure everything is working properly. System beeps after it has made sure that all is well, but the drive light flashes. The computer begins loading MS-DOS into the memory. As soon as the program loads, MS-DOS is ready to go to work. First looks like MS-DOS. Both MS-DOS the computer runs have evolved through years. In the sense that MS-DOS, the IBM PC introduced example of books that design work correctly with the computer any release. MS-DOS support for the command described with the variation of the way computers itself with the MS-DOS can be organized and installed with the presence of the person who uses it. Only highly visible difference is how MS-DOS looks into the loaded memory ready for your command. The following sections describe the more variations, one of which they should explain when you see them on the screen when you start with the system. Many of the computers today are sold with Microsoft. The Windows are instead of installed on a hard disk. In some cases, the system is so configured so that Windows automatically each time the computer is turned on. If this case, you will see the screen looks like something like one shown in Figure 2.1. Figure 2.1 shows the Open Program Manager screen of Microsoft Windows. Windows require the MS-DOS to run, so you can leave the Windows temporarily to use the book. Leave the Windows, press Alt key, or then F and then X. When the window display of the box in the middle of the screen telling you, will the end of your Windows session, press Enter. The screen clear for the now MS-DOS control and display of the following. C double colon backslash greater than underscore or its displays. C backslash double colon backslash Windows back greater than symbol. You need to you're ready to start with the MS-DOS going on the head with the system prompt on the page. 16. Open with the start up of the menu in version 6. Install the machine with each of the screen with the title of the MS-DOS start menu. Below the title with the two more numbered choices, such as the list of the choice that's called the menu choice with the might include with the normal start network. Below the menu there's a line enter choice with the file with the number of the default choice with the screen that lets you choose with a different way with the starting your system. You can hurt anything that no matter how you start with the press enter choose with the default menu with the default may be chosen for you after a few seconds after you press enter. You can see one of the startup variations described in the next 4 sections. Okay, opening system MS-DOS shell. If you're using MS-DOS version 4 later, your system might start up with the MS-DOS shell. If you see what the display looks like this. The illustration shows the open screen with the version 6 shell of the period of the form of the text mode with a display of the made of the letters numbered 11 line brackets of the text character with the rather than graphic image of the fold of the arrow shaped mouse's pointer. Your shelf screen with the might and differ for some detail. Chapter 11 of the MS-DOS shell shows you how to use the shell because of the shell with the optional however because they sometimes leave it in both the MS-DOS with the remaining with the chapter intended. Indeed, much of this book takes out the side of the shell. This should help you become comfortable with the MS-DOS in itself. Should enable the user all version MS-DOS benefit example. If you see the opening shell with the leave of the shell now for the pressing the F3 key with the MS-DOS response clearing the screen and display with the back to C drive or C drive DOS. If your computer does not have hard disk, you can see A drive instead of C drive. Now you have direct MS-DOS. Go on sections called the system prompt on page 16. Opening without Windows or MS-DOS shell. On many systems, regardless of the version of MS-DOS, usually the MS-DOS starts up out rapidly during displaying some of the brief message of the version 6.0. For example, the first message you will see is something like this, starting MS-DOS. If you see such a message any other doesn't require a response from you, you can assume the MS-DOS is settling properly. If you start with a routine, MS-DOS ends in the display with a C drive or C drive DOS or A drive if you don't have a hard disk. Wait for the command and start up the ends like with the MS-DOS ready to work with a go on the second and call with the system prompt on page 16. Opening with the day, with the time, and the request. Regardless of the version you use with the MS-DOS, check with the correct date, with the time, and the probe with the standard and start up routine. If your computer contains battery powered internal clock, the MS-DOS, check for the clock information it needs. If your computer does not have a clock, however, the first thing with the MS-DOS is ask you for the date and the time. First, ask for the date, current date of the Tuesday, and then it shows January 1st for 1980. Enter new date, month, 2-digit month, 2-digit day, 2-digit year. If you see this message, enter the key for now, even though it isn't Tuesday, January 1st, 1980. MS-DOS request the time. Next, current time, it says 01:30 a.m. Enter new time. Again, just press enter and you'll see how the change both the date and the time later with the chapter of the MS-DOS should now display the message for the version using with the end of the display as C drive or C drive DOS, or if you don't have a hard disk, A drive, go in the section called System Prompt on this page. None of the above. The year of the MS-DOS appeared with many of the company developed shell programs, more sophisticated software, provide alternative way of the computer managing file of the application. MS-DOS shell with the version 4, later examples of the program, Microsoft Windows, and other. And none of the preceding description matches where you see with the start of your computer, check with the documentation with the chain of the computer, ask the person when you start your system whether the shell or special program has been installed so you can, how you can leave it temporarily to use this book. Or the system prompt with the command C drive or A drive if you're not using the hard drive. This is called the system prompt with the command prompt with the kill with the start program and MS-DOS with the prompt with the type of the command with the point with the MS-DOS off the call with the command level with the kill with the ready and waiting for the command. System prompt identify with the current drive with the drive with the MS-DOS looks like the file with the MS-DOS identify the drive with the layer with the system flop with the disk drive with the one hard drive with the flash drive disk. Identify both A and B with the hard disk drive with the C with the on the system. 2 floppy disk drive with the left-hand upper drive with the usually A with the right-hand lower drive with the usually B. MS-DOS load with the hard disk drive C with the MS-DOS. Assume with the drive C with the current drive with the initial setup with the C drive with C drive DOS. If you're not using a hard drive with the MS-DOS, load the drive with the A drive MS-DOS. Assume that the drive A is for the current drive with the initial setup prompt over the system with the A drive. Book contains many examples of where you try with a few examples of the example shown with the prompt with the C drive, the kit with the normal system prompt for the computer with the hard disk, the version 6, the MS-DOS. If you're not using a hard disk, proceed with the example. Bear in mind that where you see C drive in this book, you will see A drive on your screen. Entering MS-DOS command. For the first command that you enter with the session with the knee with the chart with the typewriter over the keyboard, the 3 of these keys, enter backspace and up arrow are shown on the keyboard figure 2223 and are worth separate mention. Backspace, arrow key, and up arrow. The backspace, enter, up arrow keys on the PC are compatible keyboard. Figure 2-3 backspace, enter, up arrow keys are enhanced on PC compatible keyboard. The enter key is labeled with bent left arrow, and the word enter with the both like with the return with the typewriter marks at the end of the line. In general, the MS-DOS does not know when you have typed until you press enter with the remember end of a command pressing enter key. The backspace key is labeled with the left arrow. The word backspace is both of the reach of the last character you type to use to correct the typing errors. Up arrow. The up arrow is labeled with the upward pointing arrow located with the 8th key with the numerical keypad or resemble the calculator on all IBM compatible keyboards. Also appears as a set of 4 direction keys left of the keypad enhancing with the keyboard. Up arrow key is often used to move highlight of the screen with MS-DOS version 5 and 6. Also let you repeat the command also as you see in a moment. Alright, getting started. At this point, MS-DOS should be displaying with the system prompt the file immediately with a blinking underline with a curve that show with the MS-DOS will display whatever the type of the name that also tells you the MS-DOS waiting for you to type something in the time of the MS-DOS to work. MS-DOS commands you try the chapter easy to use with the remember so with no special preparation of the need that you have with the version 5 of the layer of the MS-DOS. However, you have the extra small program with the DOS key that you can load with the computer's memory. Use the MS-DOS to make some of the tasks more efficient. You can use the DOS key in this chapter, so if you have the version 5 or later, type C drive DOS key and press enter key. If you have the MS-DOS floppy disk and send with the message of bad command or file name, don't worry with the floppy disk in the drive. The A does not include the MS-DOS and even to carry out the command. Just ignore DOS key with the run out, and you will see that you will be able to put it in a second thought. Check with the version of the MS-DOS. Some of the examples in the book assume that you know the version of the MS-DOS. You're assuming the easiest way to find out with the MS-DOS is to have the MS-DOS itself, where you know the MS-DOS the version of the NAT and try out with the version, short version command or VAR command. Type this, C drive ver, or that would be the version command from press enter with the MS-DOS. If the display with the message with identify with the version exact wording depend with the computer with the version MS-DOS you have with the Microsoft Relief with the version 6.2. For example, your message may see MS-DOS version 6.2. Keep tracking of the date and time. Important to know whether which the MS-DOS you is most important to know whether your computer keep the correct date and the time of the correct electronic clock. Keep the time with the hundredths of a second. MS-DOS give the clock to keep track of the both of the time and the date. In some computers, the clock does not run with the system is shut off, so each time when they start with the system, MS-DOS start with the January 1st, 1980, instead of the time of the midnight with the system without battery-powered clock with some type of the MS-DOS prompt with the correct date and the time of the startup. If your system does not keep the date and time currently, you must press enter to respond with the date with the time of the prompts you start with the system with the MS-DOS assume with the midnight January 1st, 1980, even though you might have been by with the simplicity. Skipping set with the correct date with the time earlier with the chapter but it is really with a good habit to form with the because of the MS-DOS marks each file with a create with a chain with the current time with the date with such information useful. So it's a good idea to correct with the date and the time if necessary each time you start with the system. Checking and changing with the date. Check with the change of the date. Use the MS-DOS type of command type with the C drive back C drive dash date. Press enter MS-DOS respond with a probability of the different date, current date, month 11th, 21st, 1994, and enter new date, double the month, double the day, double year. Cursor now follows enter a new date request. So the request is called the prompt of the MS-DOS. Frequently prompt with the enter information that you do not have memorized of the operation procedures. Change for the date you have the type of the number that represents the month, the date, and the year separated with the hyphens, but you press for the enter key, but you do not have the type of the day of the week. The MS figures out the day for you. For example, let's say for the day of the name, date is January 1st, January 5th, 1995. With the type of the information you'll see at the top of the next page. Be sure to enter for the last number. Current day, Monday, 11th, 21st, 1994. Enter the month, day, and year, and then you can use the backslash or the period, you can use the slash or period separate for the numbers, whichever you use. Does not do it if you don't do it exactly right. In other words, in any way, but the MS-DOS recognizes. MS-DOS display with an invalid date, prompts you to try again, and if you made a mistake and enter the wrong date, don't be alarmed, all you've seen is easy to fix such errors. Check the date again with the MS-DOS chain with it for you. If you don't have the version 5 later, you will repeat the last command, type it again with the do not know. If do so now with the MS-DOS should respond with a normal date display. If you have version 5 or later, then the easier way to repeat the command is press up arrow key with the MS-DOS displays C drive date. Date command, just type with the remember the end for the DOS key with the command with a few pages of the DOS key program keeps track of each of the command with the type with a special area with the memory. After you start with the DOS key, recycle with the previous command with the pressing up arrow with it as you just did. Pressing enter key MS-DOS responds just as you have typed the date with the command, the current date, and the enter with the new date. Pressure just two key that you have repeated all the last MS-DOS commands, your correct date with a moment. First try following the exercise how easy you can fix the type errors. Backspacing on correct typing. Error of the backspace. Enter with the type of the care with the following with a random but do not enter with the current date and then the new entry the new date. If it is not validated, if you were to press enter with the MS-DOS will display with the mentioned invalid date. Ask you to try again. Correct with the typing error with the pressing with the backspace key with the over the characters are arrayed for the cursor back with the original position just to have the right over the colon screen locks it exactly like it did before current date and then enter with the new date. The time of the type for the correct date with the press enter for example, and then it shows check for the changing of the time. So you control the date with the command with the check for the change for the time of the MS-DOS with the time of the command of the computer internal clock calendar keep with the date with the current even with a system that's turned out probably won't have a lot of view for the day with the time, but if you still come in handy when the time change with the daylight saving, for example, when you want to know what the date would be, a certain date falls on, and once you have the date command with the time command looks quite familiar to try the type command time. MS-DOS display for the version of the time and the prompt for the new time. If the MS-DOS display with the correct time and you don't want to tamper with it, press enter with the type of the prompt. Then type of the incorrect. If you feel experimental, type of the time in an appropriate format of the version MS-DOS is described below. Alright, version 1.3, work on a 24-hour clock, 8:30 before noon and 22, and this shows the military time, 20:30 afternoon. 4 and later, 12-hour and 24-hour clock. With version 1 and 2, for the example, it would be the current time, and then enter the new time at the time of the 1.15. The version 4 would also look like this. Version 4 later, except for the either form of the change of the incorrect time. The result of the before continuing with the version 5 a little bit later. Press of the upper key with the recall of the last command. If you have the version 5 later, type of the command. Not type of the correct time, and the press of the key area of the command. Changing the current drive. You change the current drive, simply type with the prompt of the letter with the new drive with the file by its colon. And for example, the try the changing current drive B with a new floppy disk 75 with the half U with the before one of the MS floppy disk. Careful, you have the one on floppy disk, insert the floppy disk with the drive with the label up with the way with the machine with the two floppy disk drive with the insert with the floppy disk with the drive that does not currently contain with the MS-DOS startup disk. The now type of the C drive, the B drive, and you have one floppy disk MS-DOS display with the message. Insert the diskette with the prior drive B and press any key when ready. When the floppy disk is already in drive, it's okay for the press the key with the MS-DOS response. Now, other system B configure informing the MS-DOS you will look on the B unless it's told the otherwise. If you're using a hard disk, change the correct drive back to C and type the following C drive. C colon. System prompt with the return to C drive. If you're not using the hard disk, change the correct drive back to drive A by typing the following A colon. The system prompt the A current edit line. Print what's on the screen with the screen show with the record with the command with the prompt with the MS out with the normally show with the maximum 25 lines. All lines show with each of the additional line with the cover with the entire screen with the shift up with the scroll with the make the room with the new line with the bottom with the top of the disappear with the view. Pick up with the copy with the displays usually MS alpha makes it easy to print with it's on the screen. Locate with the print screen key. Label the abbreviation like with the PT, PRTSE or print screen. Under the key name and spell while depending on the keyboard you're using. Make sure the printer is turned on. Hold down the shift key and with the press of the print key. And this combination for the text is shift print screen. Each line with the screen is printed. If the shift print screen does not produce the printed copy with the what's on the screen, you may need help to help your printer understand the instruction. With most Hewlett-Packard LaserJet printers, for example, you press the button on with the printer labeled online, press the form feed button, print the page, then press the online again, return to the printer the earlier status, and normal check with the documentation that came up with your printer. Alright, clearing the screen. Sometimes the screen is filled with the command and response you want to the clear before continuing with the work. Type of the erase of the screen and fill with the clear screen or CLS with the command. Try typing CLS. Screen is cleared except for the system prompt at the upper left-hand corner. Turn the system off. The MS-DOS display with the system prompt. All you have to do is shut the system down with the turn off the power switch. All you can do with it any time. Alright, Momo. You can do it anytime except for the lay of the disk, for the drive, for the turning the power off while the drive can call the loss for the data of the disk. If you're using an application program that decided to shut down the system, first follow the program instructions saving your work quitting. And when the program returns you for the system prompt, you can shut down without risking loss of the data. Some disks attached to your system have special requirements for shutting down, such as for the specific sequence which would be turned off. Be sure that you know that any of the special instructive devices attached to your system. After you shut down the system, be sure to remove any floppy disks when you're using them and store them where they'll be safe. Remove the floppy disk before you turn off the power. Provide no disk drive in use. Alright, chapter summary. You've completed the first session of MS-DOS. It wasn't very long, but if you start with the system, enter for the MS-DOS command. Printing of them was on the screen. These are the key points to control MS-DOS with the typing command. MS-DOS does not know when you've typed until you press enter with the backspace or raise for the last character type. System prompt tells the MS-DOS command level to read accept the command for you. Letter in the system and identify with the current drive. You can change with the current drive by the type of the new drive within the file by colon. You can check to see with the version MS-DOS with the version VAER with the version command. Command keep the track of the date and the time. They can also set them with the date and time command. Version 5 and later, DOS key helps you repeat commands quickly and easily. Pressing Shift print screen prints the contents of the screen. Typing CLS clears the screen. Chapter 3, Getting Your Bearings.